Spaces. How you doing? We got a crew here. We meet every every Wednesday and Thursday at 14:30 UTC for 90 minutes of open spaces where we can bring any topics we want to the table, and then we split up into breakout rooms and just start getting stuff done. One quick announcement about this session. If you live in the United States, you will turn your clocks ahead this weekend. But the UTC time of this meeting will not change. We will continue to meet from 14:30 to 1600 UTC. So if you live in a country where your clocks are changing, the start time of this meeting will change for you, but not the rest of the world. Okay, so for me, it'll be a different start time next week, an hour later, because that's in relation to UTC. Any questions about that? Cool, cool. So let's jump over to the Miro board. There's a link here in the chat, and we could take a look together. So what we usually do at this time during a meeting is just spend a couple minutes. Let me just put 2 minutes on the clock here so that everybody can find their way over to this frame. And if there's something you want to talk about today, you could take one of these green sticky notes. We can duplicate these so there's more for people to choose from. And feel free to change the color or to use emojis on somebody else's sticky, or even to move it into a given room if it fits with a specific circle that we have here. Any questions about what we're about to do? All right, take 2 minutes to put some thoughts on the page, then we will align on how to use our time today. See you in 2 minutes. All right. Often when we start to discuss these notes, people will keep adding a few other ideas, and that's totally fine if that happens, okay? So I'm just going to take these unused sticky notes and just kind of move them out of the way, but anybody can grab one if you need one later. Um, and let's just run through from left to right what we see here. So I threw this one up. I would love to close the loop on our consent process by number one, reviewing what consent decision making is and showing that we've done some parts of it over the last week before asking for final approval for the Notion proposal that we've been working on. So that's one of my proposals for what we might cover here in the main room. How about this one? Tooling, working with Notion, Obsidian here. Anybody want to talk about that one?
I would like to talk a little bit about the basics on that. I know you guys are advanced already on Notion, work with Notion proposal, but yeah, perhaps staying in the main room to work on that a little bit.
Cool. I like it. Thanks for the reminder here for moving forward. Moving left to right, I added this to the education, learning, and teaching, and I said start writing a proposal for how we will deliver PPBL 2024. This is actually kind of connected, Juan, to what you were just sharing, so maybe we could draw a line right here. What I would propose to do is to, from scratch, start to write a new proposal in Notion so we can learn how to use it together. With the specific lens of proposing how we can organize our work and build towards the PPBL 2024 course. Next, I see preparing for games next week. Newman, what you got?
Yeah, that's sort of what my focus is today. Basically just some admin work, like contacting the people. I've got like a soft commitment from Santiago from TX Pipe. I'd like to get like a little social media campaign going using that tool Buffer, basically a series of posts that talks about some things, and then that very loose agenda. I'm hoping not to spend too much time on it, but just the appropriate amount. Yeah. And basically what I'm considering is I'd like to stay in the main room, or I'd like to stay in wherever we work on that proposal process. But then but the last 30 minutes kind of work on the thing, just so that I keep the momentum going on that. Yep.
Cool.
I'd be happy if anybody wants to jump in and work with me on it, or to see what I'm doing, or to ask questions about the game's live coding. Then yeah.
Very cool. Thanks. I like how you're thinking about using the time in different blocks, even within this session. Thanks for that suggestion.
For sure.
How about surfacing tensions in the S3 style?
So that was me as well. That was just my first sort of thought of, I'm really beginning to learn to sort of navigate by tension. Tension sort of feels like it's a bad word, but it's actually a really good word. It's just like, oh, this is where the energy is. And so I'm like, oh, the energy is at preparing for games. The energy is going into this next one. Like, what is the proposal writing process? And the principle being sort of awareness, like we should all be aware of the processes that our community uses, and this is one that we're pioneering and really making an effort to learn and do. And that kind of, that's sort of the onboarding process, right? That's sort of like our community thing, meaning becoming aware and being transparent, which is something I'm giving ourselves kudos for, that we're spending our time together to say, oh, look, let's do it in this way. So yeah.
Very cool. Oh, I hope we can dedicate a lot of time to that just as a habit moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, proposal writing process, awareness, transparency.
Yep. That goes into that same sort of thing. It's just being aware of the things that what is the little phrase that goes along with it? Figure out who you are and do it on purpose. And so, we're a coding community, a builder community, a community on the blockchain, and innovation community, and then we're doing it on purpose using these S3 patterns and trying to innovate in the governance space. And so, yeah, this all goes with this proposal for the for using a tool and using our shared treasury. We're doing it in an open, a transparent way, and then trying to figure out, is that the way that we move forward for the next for the next change or for the next treasury disbursement. Yeah, so that's what that's about. I would like to learn how to do that. I'd like to learn how to craft a proposal and get sort of consent around it, get it, collaborate with others on it and all that whatnot. That's exciting to me. I think that's something that will benefit us moving forward wherever, however. Yeah.
Oh man, okay, I couldn't agree more. And I just drew a connection from that to maybe what we can accomplish today.
Yeah.
So with all of that in mind, any objections to using this main room right here to move towards finalizing this Notion proposal and then hopefully to jump into actually starting to play with both the tool and the proposal writing process?
No objection here. Do we do a round or raise or give a thumbs up or a reaction somehow?
If anybody has a concern to block us, this is the time to bring it up.
I see Harsha's got a thumbs up. Steve Pabon has got a thumbs up. Ken's got a thumbs up. Seems like a quorum. Juan's got a thumbs up.
All right, let's give it a try. I'm going to stop sharing Miro. I'm going to open 4 breakout rooms. So there's 4 breakout rooms open just in case anybody wants to jump over to any of those anytime for any reason. But in the meantime, I'm going to share a screen right here. And here on my screen, you can see that I'm on the Sociocracy 3.0 website. Their practical guide is really good. There's the what is it section, some principles that you can read about, concepts, and then maybe for me, my favorite part of this site is this section around patterns. And we're not going to dive into all of these patterns right now. I just want everybody to know that this resource is here. And the way this resource is designed is so that you can grab only the parts you need when you need them. It's really important to the creators of Sociocracy 3.0 that we understand that the expectation is not just to take this as a framework or a system without questioning it, but to only look through it like a toolbox, right? This patterns list, you can think of it as just a box of tools. And if there's something helpful for you in there, you can use it. But you don't have to pick up anything that doesn't have a use case. So we're going to return to this bit right here about consent decision-making in just a moment. But before we do, here's our current state. I brought to the team this proposal last week, and there's a public link.
I've got it there on the Miro board. I can drop it in.
Thanks. You already dropped it in. Thank you.
It's on the Miro. I can put it in the chat if we like. I'll do that.
And so thanks, Newman. What we've already done is opened up this proposal last week and started to work through this process here. And so rather than going through the whole thing, what I'd like to do is review the process that's outlined here, talking about what we've done so far. And then if people need to ask questions and we need to pause at any point here, we will do that. But I think what we'll see is that we've already been through a lot of this and we might get to agreement pretty quickly. So let's see. So first of all, this concept of consenting to a driver and the requirement. If you were around in the first 3 weeks of January this year, you participated in some parts of our driver mapping workshop for Gimbalabs. And we came up with a driver. What's cool about drivers is that they're a fractal structure. You might be able to write one at the full organizational level, and you can see what we came up with right here, right? Or sorry, this one, to provide open, replicable, safe spaces to learn, explore, and empower individuals. and organizations anywhere so we can solve meaningful problems. But then even at the individual project or proposal level, we are encouraged to write drivers there as well. And so in addition to just copying and pasting the primary driver, I drafted a driver for this specific proposal. Now, where do drivers come from? Often you might write one just because you already have an idea in mind of something that we can do. But another place that drivers often come from is through tension. And so we talked about on the Miro board just a minute ago that we want to explore how tensions emerge and are named. But what's one of the places that that can lead? The answer is towards writing a new driver or a requirement. Okay. So if we took this approach, one way we could think about this is that, hey, maybe the tension that this proposal is responding to is that we need a way to organize for more complex and longer term projects. Okay. And so I could imagine bringing that tension to a group. Hey, I feel like we need a better way to get organized on projects. And that tension could be turned into a driver from which we can write a proposal. All right. So we didn't do that step this time, but I just want everybody to know that in the future, when you see a tension, one outcome is to try to fashion it into a driver that can be the jumping off point of creating a proposal. Any clarifying questions about the way I'm sharing that process right now? I don't expect us to be perfect on that. We're going to keep coming back. This is what we have the opportunity to practice over the months to come. So there's the driver. It can come from tensions. Last week, I presented a proposal. It was this, but in an earlier draft form. People wrote comments on the proposal, and we talked about it during a meeting. Newman, you brought up immediately the tension last Wednesday when I first presented this, that it would be better if people had some lead time to read a proposal in advance. I think organizationally, that's a really good thing for us to try to do. Okay, so we didn't try to rush this proposal through last Wednesday and go from me introducing it towards expecting consent all within a 90-minute meeting, but instead we had the chance to think about how we want proposals to work in the future. We want to give each other the chance to read and respond to those proposals. And then eventually, once people feel like they've had that time, now we can start to expect consent. So I thought that was a really good breakthrough last week. This understanding piece is where we ask for clarifying questions. So I brought this last week on Wednesday and Thursday and asked people if they had clarifying questions. People shared them both with their voice in this meeting and by writing comments on the original draft of the proposal. And this is where the writer of the proposal can give a response. You can see this is a cyclical process. You might go through the understanding and response steps a few times, okay? But what I've done is I've taken the feedback and the clarifying questions and tried to incorporate that into this, which is the latest draft of the proposal. And then finally, this is the step we're at right now. Now, if people understand the proposal, we're ready to check for possible objections. Now, if you still have clarifying questions, if something doesn't make sense, we can always go back to this step, and we can do this right now if anybody needs to. But we can also start moving into this part where we check for possible objections as well. So I'd like to open it up to both of these parts. If anybody has further questions about understanding, we're going to rewind to this part. But if nobody raises any new questions, now's the time to check for objections. right? This means you understand the proposal. It's just that there's a reason you think we might not want to do it the way it's written. And if objections are raised, we're going to first ask if this actually qualifies as an objection, okay? And then if it does qualify, we will work to resolve it by changing the proposal, and we'll repeat this cycle until there are no further objections, at which point we will say that we've reached agreement. Any questions about the process that we're about to engage in? Okay. So this is the proposal. You've got a public link to it. Does anybody have objections to going forward with this proposal? Harsha, what do you think?
I don't necessarily have an objection, but the last part of the proposal, which is review and adaptation plan, it still is like options that we need to pick from and what counts as like a contributor. So just like clarification on that part, I think would be helpful to pass the proposal.
Excellent. So yeah, this review plan and this question, how does someone get a Gimbalabs Notion account, is probably not fully fleshed out enough. And so we could either make this a separate proposal, how we do this process, or we can get this outline or this possibility to be good enough to resolve this objection. So take a look at this. Currently, it says when someone faces a blocker, they can ask for a Notion account. And then it says, what does it mean to ask for a Notion account? And who decides that someone should or shouldn't get one? And we listed two options. The person who wants an official Gimbalabs Notion account can either write a new project proposal in the format demonstrated here. And it's easy to create a public template that people can use to do this. Or we could eventually build some kind of PBL course where people are onboarded to this process, separate from being part of these conversations, for example, in a meeting like this. Maybe we want to provide some asynchronous materials. I don't know if we would deliver this right away. So to me, this feels like an exciting follow-up proposal, but probably not something I'd want to promise that we'd have before we start building projects, right? Because this, I guess I'm kind of thinking that this is itself a project to build the PBL that could be the onboarding system. And I'd like to have a project system in order to deliver something like this if we choose to do it.
Yeah, so that becomes like a separate process. But in the moment, would that satisfy satisfy the tension? Because the tension, as I understand it, is we need Notion accounts to run our projects that are going. And would this give us? I mean, maybe like who would get the account initially? Maybe that would help solve Harsha's things. Like agreeing to this means that we'll get 3 people Notion accounts.
Yeah, I just need some clarification. When someone faces a blocker, they ask for a Notion account. What does that necessarily mean?
Good. Well, let's combine all of this, right? Because that's basically what we said. Like when someone faces a blocker, we could say, or attention, maybe right here, they can ask for a Notion account. What does that mean? Here's how. Okay, so what if I say instead like this? They can ask for a Notion account. Here is how. We can say that they will write a project proposal. They will write a project proposal in the format shown here. And we can say a public template will be provided so that someone can draft a project proposal. And, you know, there's a few, the question is like, well, okay, fine, once I draft a project proposal, how do I share it? We could say for now that they must bring it to this open spaces meeting, or we could commit to creating an asynchronous pathway right away. I usually tend towards options that provide something simple first, and then we build the more complicated solution later. The problem with simple solutions is they often close off opportunities for people temporarily. And so if we went with the simple approach of saying, okay, write a proposal and bring it to this open space meeting, that would lock out people who can't make it to this meeting for any number of reasons, okay? However, if we did have that temporary constraint as our first way of doing things, then we could also build an asynchronous process that welcomes people who can't make it to this meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Harsh has got a thumbs up.
I have one more clarifying question to ask. So when we say they have to draft a proposal, is it like individuals or can it be a group of people that draft a proposal?
Great question. I'm okay with, yeah, any number of people, a group of one or more people is sufficient. Any objections to saying that a group can draft a proposal?
No.
So let's add this. A public template will be provided so that someone can draft a project proposal. Project proposals can be drafted by individuals or groups. And proposals must be presented at Gimbalabs Open Spaces. And this is the temporary initial approach. Later build async process for proposal sharing and approval. But that's a long-term project to build that async process. And so we want to maybe push that out. So how does this feel? And if this is good, we can get rid of some of this. So when someone faces a blocker or a tension, they can ask for a Notion account. Here's how. They write a project proposal in the format shown on this page, right? So this template will be provided, and we can link to the decision-making process and other S3, other useful documents. Then, after drafting on that public template project, we have a few qualifiers here. I guess let's make these sub-points, because really it's just these two things, right? Write a project proposal in this format with the public template, individually or in a group, and then present it at open spaces for consent decision-making. How's that, if that's how we start? And the idea here is that once an individual or a group has a project proposal, now they need a Notion account, and we'll pay for it. But people are taking the first step of showing that they need the account by showing that they have a project proposal to start with.
Okay. I'm raising my hand.
What do you think, Newman?
So this is interesting because now it feels, and not, you know, right or wrong, but it feels like maybe we're moving from people getting accounts towards proposals / projects getting Notion accounts. And it just as an observation, that's cool though. And I don't know where this fits, but and it's weird because I kind of have the tendency to sort of, okay, put myself in the future, and this proposal was passed, and what would the possible tensions be? But it would be like, and maybe this goes into the proposal, who I would love, in the sense of transparency, to see a list somewhere where the Gimbalabs paid Notion accounts are currently residing, so that I know who has these accounts. Because it'll probably be something like, oh, I have a tension, or I want to make a proposal in Gimbalabs, and I look and see who has the account, so I can say, oh, right, not like I don't actually need to ask for a whole count. I can just say, oh, Steve has an account. I'll send him a thing. Harsha has an account. I can send him something to post in to the note. Or it would just be cool to see where the accounts are. I guess that's what I want to say.
I like that. And that actually, so this first one, how does someone get an account? This is really starting to become more of a piece of the proposal. Whereas this concept, who has Notion accounts at Gimbalabs, that is absolutely part of the review here, making it possible for people to review the outcome of this proposal.
Yeah.
So I love this constraint. Like, yeah, I think it's worth committing to providing a list so people can see who has that account. Nori, what do you think?
Um,
And hey, good morning.
Good morning. I'm looking forward to next week when the time changes and this is actually an hour later. I can join more regularly. For the review, in my kind of vocabulary, projects have a fixed starting date and an end date. Do these accounts follow the project life, or are they permanent? Is the project, I guess I'm saying, is the project a gateway to becoming a Notion account holder, or is it for that project? So there's a subtle difference there. So if it's a gateway to
100%.
prove participation and worthiness or whatever to have this kind of ability, then that's cool. But if not, then is there a review date to say, okay, the project's over, do you still need this account?
Excellent. And this
But, yeah.
mirrors a concern that Newman just raised. So yeah, this one's really important, because what I heard Newman say is it feels like maybe we're moving towards providing accounts for projects and not for people.
Mhm.
And so right, similar sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
My view of this is that people need Notion accounts in order to be contributors so that we can collaborate better with each other.
Mhm.
One of the things we talked about last week is that there needs to be some barrier to entry, right? We can't just say something, for example, like, if you follow Gimbalabs on Twitter, you get a Notion account, right? Like that would just be unsustainable and very expensive. So there has to be something that we ask people to do in order to onboard to using Notion. And proposing a project is one possibility for that, right? Because if you are willing to do that work of proposing something that we might do and bring it to the table, that's a sufficient barrier to entry to say, okay, yeah, let's collaborate.
Yeah,
Now,
I
to the
like that.
question of review dates, right? Well, when do we review whether somebody gets to keep using their account?
Yeah, like if they haven't been actively using it in the past 3 months, is that a
Yeah.
good cadence, or is it 6 months? Or there should be some kind of review, but then we need to talk about who's going to do that review and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love the idea that it's a gateway or that kind of initial barrier, that if you're comfortable enough, onboarded enough that you can go through the process, submit a proposal, then you're probably in a good spot to be an active contributor. Here's a Notion account, and then we review it at whatever cadence to make sure you're actually still using it. That feels like a good mechanism for the 11 section.
I really like that. And we'll come back to that in just a moment, but I think that should definitely be a written part of the adaptation plan. I want to kick it to Steve before coming back to this one. Steve, what do you think?
The direction that Newman and Nori are talking about this is interesting. Partly because of my ideas for proposals, like, and they're both, I don't want to say they're vague notions, but like, and I've already spoken about these briefly last week or whenever, and like, I could quit coming to these open spaces, and everybody would continue along, and these ideas would not really be missed as far as Gimbalabs goes, but they're very real things because of what we know is coming. Like, we know that we want to make a Dandelion PBL. Governance is coming to us, through Voltaire, whether we like it or not. And that's the other proposal I would like to work on, is this idea of the Gimbalabs group, however we define that, being a DREP. But in the sense of me writing a proposal for Dandelion or me writing a proposal for the Gimbalabs group being a DREP, there's nothing but questions in my mind about that. And it's not just a me idea, right? I have to have participation with everybody to be able to even work on this proposal, to flesh out the proposal. And so I like the idea of those, and I don't need anything with my name on it. I do want to work on these ideas, and I feel like I'm situated to be, like, I'm kind of like a blank template for Dandelion PBL, because I know nothing, but I've got a computer over here on my right that I'm not using yet. Template me with the Dandelion PBL, right? Like, I'm the perfect student in that regard right now. And so, like, I feel like I just kind of want to use me as the imaginary student, for a Dandelion PBL. And kind of the same is true with the idea for Gimbalabs to be a DREP. Is like, okay, how do we bring everybody in? And so, like, as if I think about writing these proposals on Notion, like, how many people will actually get notified when there's an update to a proposal? Does everybody with a Gimbalabs Notion account get notified? That's a kind of a practical question about how Notion actually functions. As steps are made in a proposal, is everybody kept abreast of that?
Very good. Okay. So yeah, these are critical concerns, and there's some practical questions there. So, like, yeah, a lot of efficiency comes from more people having these accounts, right? The more people who have these accounts, the more we can operate as an organization where we ping each other and get feedback. So that's 100% true. And Nori just shared a really important link in the chat. Let me open this one up. Going back to the patterns page, here we are back on Sociocracy 3.0. There's this concept of proposal forming. And I think it does speak exactly, Steve, to what you're saying. People don't have to bring a fully fleshed out proposal. Often it's this process by which the details do get fleshed out in the first place. So you might have an idea that we need to start writing a proposal for, but for example, not want to or not feel like you have all the information you need in order to write the whole thing. And that's to be expected, right? Who writes the best proposals? Not individuals, us collectively, if we can get the diverse perspectives of the group, okay? So this is something we can work on together as well. And in fact, I would really like to demonstrate this if there's time today or tomorrow by forming a proposal for how we build PPBL 2024. Now, that's one thing I want to bring to the table. For me, it's the most urgent thing that I want to do next at Gimbalabs is build PPBL 2024. But we just heard from Steve that two of his priorities are also to think about Dandelion PBL and to think about Intersect DREPs. Now, I'm excited about those two things. And I can imagine a future where if proposals are not yet written, I start to take the lead on forming those proposals. However, my timeline might not be fast enough for other people here. And there's people here who might want to see those sorts of projects start sooner than somebody else can get to them. And when you feel that happening, there's a certain point at which any of us might decide to start writing the proposal. And that's the system we're trying to build, right? Am I okay with what's happening right now? Sure, there's projects that are ongoing and I want to commit to them. However, I'm feeling tension that the thing that's most important to me is not yet happening. What can I do about it? I can start the proposal process. How does that feel, Steve?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of going along with how I view the situation right now. It's March, right? Governance is coming like a big dog. I'm tied into some of this process now, but there's a lot of shit that I haven't had time to put my head into yet. So it is an ongoing process that doesn't really require, it requires getting more informed and letting the group know what's going on. And in that process, I can write out what I've learned and what it looks like we'll all, would be required of us to make that commitment to actually registering as a group. And that's, it's a lot of conversations that I don't know when they're going to happen, for us as a group.
Right. Right. So one of the reasons we're doing this with S3 proposal forming and consent decision making is because of our embrace of the fact that governance is coming. Okay. These are responses to challenges we've faced in Catalyst and in Intersect so far to upgrade how governance might work and to learn about it together. So yeah, this whole thing is created. The reason I'm suggesting Notion and the reason I'm suggesting applying some of these S3 patterns is because they give us spaces to organize the work in the way that we're talking about here. Because I agree with you, right? Like we need to figure out how we organize to, for example, investigate the DREP question. That's something we've talked about before. And it's something that is likely to happen in the future. And if somebody wants it to happen right now, what I'm proposing is that we have a way to do that. By adopting this proposal, we will have the ability for any one of us to take the lead on making sure that work starts. Can you imagine it working? By the way, I made a free trial account for Gimbalabs, so we don't have to pay anything yet, and we can just as easily delete all of this if this proposal does not go through. But just because I needed a place to start collecting a few things, I made this account. And one of the projects you'll already see here is that I'm already drafting Dandelion PBL as a proposal. I needed a space to collect those thoughts, and I'll be excited to share that one as a proposal, but that one's already important enough to me, for example, that I am willing to take that first step. Okay. Okay, so coming back around, we do need a cadence for review. So I want to review right here. My proposal is to pay the annual rate for an account. And I recognize that this will make it possible for somebody to propose one project, get a paid account, and then do nothing with it for a year. Personally, I'm willing to take on that risk because we are the alternative is to create heavy systems that help us avoid that risk. And administering those kind of protective systems is kind of more work than just giving people a year. So what would people think about going with the 1-year payment, but then reviewing, at the annual renew time for each person, whether or not they've been using their account? Nori.
Sorry, muted. A lot of people have paid Notion accounts. Do you need multiple paid to collaborate, or is there a way that other paid Notion accounts can collaborate without having to put in that cost? Because that could widen the scope of participation as well. So that's just a question I have about Notion and how it works.
100%. I know. I wish there was a better answer to that one. Because, for example, right, I have a paid Notion account as a member of the Andamio team, for example. And so our options are to continue using that, but we would have to create team spaces within that account. And we wouldn't get kind of the benefits of using Gimbalabs as kind of an open organization. So it would add a lot of administration. So yes, in this case, we would be talking about doubling up that rate. And because I think the way Notion makes money is at the organization level, and you get seats per organization.
Okay. And there's no collaborate with another org.
Let me
Make-
double check for that before we go into it. Yeah, let me look at that. So
Oh, so Andamio's got an account, and you get what, X number within that?
we pay by the seat for people on that team.
Okay, so it's still per person price then.
Yeah, and there's benefits of having an organizational account, but perhaps I need to do a little bit more research on that.
So I saw the enterprise thing. I was wondering how big you had to be to actually do that. I hate it when on a pricing schedule they say, "Oh, call us."
Yeah, then you know.
Then you know it's expensive.
Hey, I see Juan has got his hand up.
Juan, what do you think?
Yes. I just have attention related to the fact that Gimbalabs is going to pay $90 something every year for opening accounts for collaborators. Just based on the data we have, we can use Discord data on the collaborators we have, or Gimbalabs have, and try to make sense of a different way to streamline that expense, because it's going to be an expense no matter what. I know it's an investment, but it could become an expense if the collaborators are not active and just open the account for the sake of having an account. Is there a way that we can do that? It's kind of I propose that question to release that tension.
Yeah,
and I apologize for not being able to provide a solution, but I just thinking of that.
Yeah. No, this is the question we're trying to address right here, right? Like we recognize that this could get very expensive if there's no barrier to entry. And my suggestion here coming out of our conversation last week is let's set the barrier to entry to be, hey, if somebody takes the time to write a proposal and bring it into this process of refining and getting consent to that proposal together, then they've shown that they will engage, at least initially, at this level of making it useful to have an account. Okay. Is it possible that somebody shows us that and then disappears and we've poorly spent this 96 US dollars? Yes, it's absolutely possible that that happens. I'm willing to take the risk to try to find out, and that's what I propose to do. So we want to have a useful mechanism for deciding to give the account to somebody. But also my experience building, right, protective systems that protect us from all the things that could go wrong is that that ends up taking a lot of administrative time. And my goal is to spend less time on administration and more time on projects that I know I need to work on. And so this, what I'm proposing here is to spend money with awareness, but not fear that it might not all be used well, because doing so will actually directly buy me time to not worry about the administration and to create time to actually get stuff done. So I'm willing to take on that risk, but that's for all of us to consider, right? Is everybody okay with taking on that risk? If not, then maybe this is not the right way to think about it. Alex, what do you think?
Well, I'm thinking about ways to mitigate risk, and maybe I don't know if it's a too difficult mechanism to implement, but let's say someone who's already contributed wants an Notion account, and then I think makes sense to give them for a year. But if it's someone new and they propose a project, maybe it makes sense just for the first time to give them like 3 months or how many months they need to complete the project. I mean, it adds some administrative work for sure, but I see how it works as a risk mitigator.
Absolutely. I could definitely see that, right? If somebody who none of us know comes along and says, hey, you don't know me, but I have this proposal and I want an account. When that happens, that would take the form of a tension, right? So any one of us could say, hey, you know, so-and-so showed up with a proposal and the proposal looks pretty good. And you know what? According to our system, we should give this person a Notion account. But nobody actually knows this person and has collaborated with them. I don't feel right about giving them an account for a full year yet. How can we mitigate the risk? Everything I just said right there, that's a tension. And
yeah,
that
but
tension
this
could lead
creates
to a new proposal.
this creates tension with the thing that, like, I mean, you're supposed to trust people. I don't know how it works, but if somebody comes, it's like, I don't think it's the right thing to do to say, I don't trust this guy. Maybe we should
Right.
limit them. So maybe it has to be kind of disclosed beforehand, so that we don't have this tension when this happens, because otherwise it's like it's a little bit, I have to be an asshole to say this. Yeah.
You're so right. This is where you use the system as it's currently written. This is what we should do with any commons. But then you do a retrospective afterwards. You say, you know what? We didn't want to be assholes in the moment, but actually now that we're thinking about it, we recognize that maybe this system needs to be changed. That's okay. That's a tension. That can be turned into a proposal. Okay. And if anybody is feeling that tension that Alex is naming right here and wants to get out in front of this problem, you can form a proposal around it. That's the beauty of it, right? So if there's a possibility for something that could happen and hasn't happened yet, but you expect that it might, you can write a proposal to mitigate that risk. Claudio, what do you think?
So I'm thinking, to be practical, beyond all the philosophical consideration, the fact that we're a very small group of people right now that we gather regularly every week here, twice a week at least, sometimes 3 times. So it's not that we're going to get flooded with people asking Notion accounts. After all, it's not that you can flip it for like an NFT and make a profit of it, right? So people are going to come. It's usually because they might have a reason to ask for a Notion account because they needed to contribute the project to the system. So I think the reasonable thing to say is that anybody who wants a Notion account with a proposal, come to an open space, and we discuss it grouply in this 15 people we gather every week, and we say, we can have an interactive discussion about that and agree on that. I think that's just a simple way of handling it at the time, because being realistically, it's not that we had to administer thousands of requests of Notions accounts and proposals. I mean, we are lucky to have the few we have right now, right? So let's be practical, and I think we can just live with that as it goes. I would say, that's my opinion.
I'm aligned with that. Thank you. So we need to do a little research on whether or not we can share these subscriptions among organizations. But even with that, my initial research is that the answer is no, and I'm proposing this anyway. I'm proposing that we have a way to use Gimbal Pool rewards to spend 96 USD per year on annual accounts for people who want to drive projects at Gimbalabs. I'm proposing this in part because I need it as a way to organize some upcoming work. And that's really what drove me to start this. I recognize that we want to practice S3 together. I think this is a good chance to do it. Although I also aspire to getting to the point where we can be more efficient, right? We've spent nearly 3 full open spaces sessions discussing whether or not we should get more efficient with some paid project management software, but we haven't had a chance to use it yet. So this right now, we're deep into the overhead time, right? Of moving towards this point where this does make things more efficient. And I recognize that we need the practice, but I'm more confident than ever that we do need something for project management. And even with these risks in mind, I want to once again voice my support for this proposal, just so we can start working on projects that we know are important. That said, does anybody have objections to going forward with this proposal as it currently stands?
I'm in favor of it. I think it's, I don't know. Like we've done what we've done up until now, but I think this kind of should enable us to tackle larger ideas asynchronously. And that's going to be a huge thing, in the future with everything that we do. So I'm there.
Good flow.
Anybody else have objections to this proposal as it's currently written? I'm writing this part as a later or possibly new proposal. So I can imagine a future where we have some onboarding PBL course for people, but that's not going to be written now. And so for now, we would be moving forward with this approach. Are we here? Are there other additional objections, or can we celebrate that we're going to give this thing a try?
It's my favorite part. I'm clicking the button. Look, I'm celebrating. Oh, Juan's celebrating. Harsha's celebrating. Woo! So exciting.
All right.
Audio is in on the celebration. Martin celebrating. Oh yeah, Henson. Oh, Henson. Hey, Henson. Henson's got his celebration on. Pabon.
Hey.
Steve's celebrating. Oh my goodness, the celebrations are just rolling.
All right, did we do it?
I think we did it. I mean,
So
wow.
let's go for it. Let's try this. And so now check it out. I presented yesterday at Playground on this concept that maybe we can minimize some bureaucracy and overhead by having this review process before consent, right? And so now we've been through the process, we've consented, we're moving forward. And one of the things we can do is we keep this project document open. We change nothing about it because this is the history of where this project comes from. And we can jump right into tasks that need to happen. Okay. I'm really excited about this efficiency. And I'm really excited about how it contrasts, for example, from the Catalyst system that I railed against yesterday. And because I do find it very frustrating that we go through the whole proposal process in Catalyst only to have to copy and paste and rewrite parts of our proposal into the milestone portal after we've been approved. I think that's a bad use of time. So look at what we're suggesting instead. If this proposal is approved, now we get to work. So one of the tasks I need to do right away is publish a proposal template that anyone can copy so that they can write a proposal. Okay. I can put my name on this because I'm part of this organization. There we go. Once other people have these paid accounts, we'll be able to assign other people to these tasks, which will be really exciting. And I intend to do this. Let me be ambitious. I'd like to do this by tomorrow. So it's done. And if I needed to share more notes about this task, I can click into it and it opens up as its own page. So I could write more about this, or I could add subtasks, for example. And so all I'm doing, I'm trying to show you this as one early lesson on what Notion enables us to do. What I like about it is that it combines documentation, right? Here is a document with project management. Here is basically a Kanban board that I can use to organize the work. And now I have a task to complete by tomorrow in order to begin to follow through on this proposal. Does anybody have questions about that kind of practical use case I just shared right there?
I guess really quickly, would that project, would that Kanban be like it's persistent and you could probably make it bigger and like it doesn't have to just stick in there? Okay.
One thing I can do is I can go to a task board where I see all of the tasks right now. And you can see that these tasks are subgrouped under their projects. Notion Plus accounts for Gimbalabs contributors, has the task that is placed right here. Let's wrap those so we can read the whole thing. All right, so I just wrote this task in this project, but when I go to the global task view, I can see this right here. I can see its due date. I can see that the work on Dandelion has 3 steps, for example, queued up, okay? And once this list gets really long, one thing that any contributor can do is filter by their name. Now, this isn't great right now because I'm the only person in this organization, so it doesn't do much. But watch, if I filter by my name, I'll only see the task I just made because it has my name on it. Okay. So yeah, we get a lot of flexibility here with how we drill down from projects, but then look at kind of the overall progress of things from a higher level view.
That's nice.
Later, we can also experiment with sprint boards if we want to start breaking work into 2-week chunks, but we're not going to rush into that. I just want you to know it's there.
There's also powerful stuff you're linking, like since Gimbalabs has circles now, you can create a circles table, and then you can make a column in any of these to say which circle it belongs to, and then you can filter by circle and just see in a circle view what are all the tasks that that circle is working on. It's like infinitely configurable, so it's really nice.
This is going to be a big change. This is going to be really cool.
And let me add that as a task as well. I'm going to start organizing Gimbalabs Notion, similar to Gimbalabs Discord. Like Nori was just saying, for example, by applying the para method, but instead of areas, talking about circles, right? And so, yeah, I think that would be a really cool place for us to start by adding circles here. I'm looking in the chat. There's a lot of scary buttons, scary buttons. True. And here's a beautiful connection. I mentioned at the start of this meeting that the way sociocracy is built is that they provide you a list of patterns. And there are more patterns here than anybody can implement in a short amount of time. You can't just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to do S3 and do all of these. What you need to do is pick the ones that you're going to implement and use it one feature at a time. And that's exactly what I commit to helping us do with Notion. We don't have to do everything at once, but we can take a bit by bit approach to using different features. And one thing that might happen is along the way, people who attend these meetings, you might not want an account yet for all good reasons. And that's great. Saves Gimbalabs money, right? But at a certain point, you might see a feature where you say, oh, I didn't know about that feature. Now I want an account. And if that happens, that's great too, right? So we have this ability to adopt it incrementally, practice using it a little bit at a time, and hopefully alleviate some of that tension or that fear that it's a lot to take in all at once.
Oh, yeah, yes. I mean, that's sort of, I mean, fear and that excitement, you know, kind of, it's just like, oh no, that's a feeling. And sometimes I can get very bipolar, or, you know, like it's either happiness or fear, scared, but it's really, you can kind of, well, it's actually sort of excitement for things to learn. Because I know that a lot of times buttons can like be awesome, you know, like, oh, you know, like Nori just said, it's just like, oh, being able to sort of filter out for the circles, and we get some organizational and transparency. So then we can see what's going on and other things. And you don't have to scroll through and sort of look for a little teeny snippet in a Discord thread, or, you know, I think it's going to be good. And I think that it's a common tool in this world. And, you know, so it's like, if you learn those buttons here, then they'll be, you know, that your next job will be using some type of project management software. I think, and I think that by going through this, we did a great, yeah, I think it's good. I'm looking forward.
Thanks, partner. Juan, what do you say?
I was thinking here that would it be possible to have like a month-by-month subscription for some people that don't want to be the whole year, but just for a project or for something that they want to participate in? Just thinking overhead, thinking the clock, the site, and just for clarity. So everybody that participates has, everybody that has an active account is actively participating. I mean, maybe we are going back to that, to something that we are very close, but just occurred to me that when I was reading.
Excellent. But while I'm thinking about it on this page, by the way, we can now take this proposal and turn it into an in-progress project. So that's very exciting. So now look, we have our first project in progress. But yeah, Juan, to your point, I hear you that month-to-month accounts might be helpful for some people. And I'm naming my experience that I've spent a lot of time administering things like that. And I really don't have time to administer things anymore. So imagine somebody who pays for a month-by-month account for 3 months and then it needs to be canceled. That would cost 30 USD. So we could claim that we're saving 66 USD by dedicating the time and attention and energy to helping people have those month-to-month accounts. Okay. And what I'm saying is that spending that 66 extra US dollars will buy me administrative time that I desperately need right now. Now, if anybody else wants to write a proposal on how we can use and administer monthly accounts on a trial basis, now we have a process for that. And so anybody is welcome to propose that. But what I want to say very, very clearly is that I really don't have time or interest in being the administrator of that. And so now that we've agreed on this proposal, if that tension emerges to the point where somebody else wants to write a proposal about it, now you can. Okay.
Perfect answer. And actually, that will be a potential tension. I mean, it's a tension. It will be a potential proposal, but it's not implying that you will do it or any human being will do it. I think we can make a proposal. Someone can make a proposal to automate that process and yeah, optimize the system is what I'm thinking.
Correct. And remember, responsibilities is part of the proposal, right? So I'm willing to be responsible for making accounts according to this proposal. It was part of the proposal for the education circle to take the lead on setting things up and showing everybody else here how to use it, right? And so if you write any proposal for any reason, it's up to you to make sure that you're naming who will actually do the work. A proposal without listed responsibilities is incomplete, because a proposal that nobody's assigned to do is unlikely to happen. And this gives us a way to really start looking at this together. Well, hey, thank you. This is incredibly exciting. One tension I recognize is that we don't have 4.5 hours to review every proposal moving forward. All right. It took 4.5 hours for the first proposal to get through because we always take a learning by doing approach. And hopefully people are starting to have an idea about how this process is going to move moving forward. Now, collectively, we can get better and more efficient at it. There's already a placeholder for a proposal about PPBL 2024 here, but it's not yet written. And in fact, I need to replace the template with the proposal template. So that's my intention, is to bring this to the group tomorrow and to start planning that. But now to close, and I'm sorry, I have a hard stop in 3 minutes. We're not going to have time for a full checkout today. So instead, I just want to give you one more thing to start imagining. Proposals like this one don't need the consent of the entire organization every time they're written. One of the places we are going is that if you have a proposal that's specific to one circle or another, you only need to go through the consent process with the people in that circle. Okay. What's that ultimately going to look like? We're going to learn together. We're going to make some progress. Okay. But this is just one of the sources of efficiency that we're going to gain now that we have this concept of a proposal, now that we've done the work of writing an organization level driver, and now that we've defined these circles, we can start putting the pieces together, and we're going to start to see that projects can be written at the circle level.
Love it.
Thanks, everybody. A lot to celebrate. This is a big deal to get the first proposal through. And here's to picking it up tomorrow, y'all. I'll be excited to pick up this one, but we'll see what other ideas there are, and we'll jump in and keep it going.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
Take care.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.